I'm Richard from Ribco Products. Today we're going to show you how to install a trailer hitch on a Harley-Davidson Tri-Glide trike. First thing to do is get the rear of the bike up in the air so you got room to get your head underneath there and work on the trailer hitch and installing it. We like to roll it up on a set of ramps. That's the easiest, gets it up about 6-8 inches off the ground. Be sure you lock the parking brake. You may want to jack it up and use jack stands, that's fine too. Just be sure you have it blocked and the brake's locked on it, okay? Be safe. The tools you need are pretty basic for this job. You're going to need a 1/2-inch socket, a short extension, a ratchet to drive that with, a torch. We're going to heat up a couple of bolts here to break down the Loctite. And the other thing that's a little bit different is you'll need a T40 Torx or star wrench, a tamper-proof type. And tamper-proof means it'll have a little hole in the center of it because the head of that screw, a little pin or stud sticking down from it to keep you from trying to take it out. But it's called a tamper-proof. You can pick this up at any auto parts store. It doesn't have to be a socket. It can just be an L-type wrench like an Allen wrench. Those are the basic tools you'll need. Let's take a look underneath the bike. So once you've got your tools laid out, you're underneath the bike here. I like to put a blanket or a towel down there to work on. You'll notice if you look up at the frame, there's 2 cross members, they call it, here across the frame. The forward cross member, you'll notice, has got 2 outer holes and 2 inner. We're going to use the 2 smaller outward holes to mount the forward 2 holes of the trailer hitch. And on the rear cross member, you'll notice there's 2 T40 Torx head screws, the ones we talked about earlier with the tamper-proof head. Those have a little pin sticking out of the middle of them. You'll need a wrench that has that hole in the center of it. I like to use the long socket, as you can see, that gets by alongside the muffler. That, or you can buy the L-type Allen wrench sort. That'll work also. These screws are put in the factory not only with the tamper-proof, but they also have Loctite on them. If you just try and use this wrench with brute force, so you'll probably end up rounding off the head of the bolt. What you need to do is warm up the head of that bolt to a couple hundred degrees to break down that Loctite. I use a little propane torch. It doesn't take a whole lot, maybe 40 seconds to a minute is all it's going to take. You're not going to burn anything else on the bike. You can point away from the bottom of the plastic on the trunk back there. This is just a little hotter than you can hang on to. It takes about 150, 175 degrees to break down that Loctite. You're going to see a little bit of smoke coming off of that maybe, and that's fine. You got a minute or 2 to work with it here. Put your socket on your ratchet or use your L-shaped wrench, and you can see once you got that, it comes loose pretty good there. So once you got your 2 Torx screws out, we're going to lift the hitch up into place and start the first couple bolts. Take the 4 bolts supplied, put your lock washers and washers on them. We're going to lift it up and start one of these rear. We took these bolts out. The threads aren't actually into this cross member. There's a solid piece of steel behind that that has the holes in it, the tapped holes or threaded holes, and that actually can slide around a little bit. So just take a look and visually make sure that's still in place so you can see the threads through the holes there. If not, you may need to take a pick or a screwdriver and line those up. I got lucky in mine were still in place. So you had jockey this in place up there between the mufflers a little bit. You may find that this is easier with the help of a friend. So now we've got our 2 rear screws started into the rear cross member. We can let that hang there. The next thing we're going to do is locate our other 2 bolts, lock washers and washers, and then we're going to put our screws or bolts in the forward cross member, and that requires using these 2 nut bars that we have. If you notice, the screw hole is offset to one side. On some years, you'll find that that hole is very close to the edge or the bend here. That's why that's offset, so you get that the hole to line up and be right next to that bend. This is the 2013. The hole is right in the middle. It doesn't matter which way this is flipped. You want it turned so that the screw head, or hole, I'm sorry, is to the outside of the frame there, as you can see, to line up. So once you got the 4 bolts started, you tighten all 4 bolts on this. The instructions tell you about 10 to 14 foot-pounds. So we're going to tighten those 4 bolts. With a 1/2-inch socket and a ratchet. Goes tight. We're going to check all 4 of those one last time. Make sure we got them where we want them. No need to be a gorilla and break those off. Just good. Okay, we're done underneath for now until we do the wiring. Come on up on top. Let's take a look. Now we're going to show you how that wiring for the trailer attaches to the Harley-Davidson trike. The first thing you do is pull the seat off. There's a single screw at the very rear of the screw. If you lift up the flap on the backrest, you'll see the Phillips screw. You pull that screw out, lift the rear of the seat up, slide it to the rear, the seat comes off. You'll want to have access to the battery. That's, if you haven't done that before, the top of the fuel injection module comes out here, your electronic ignition fuel injection comes off, and that gives you access to the battery right here. There are 2 screws. This plastic tray will come up, you'll see the positive and negative terminals. The real kicker here, thing to find, is the plug. Underneath the cross member of the frame here, you'll see a couple of different wires here. One in particular goes under here, and this goes to the taillights. We're going to cut the cable tie here, and we're going to pull this out of here. This is our sub-harness. This is a 2013 model, so we're going to use our part number HD007-TG that fits through 2013. And like I said, the newer models, 2014, are going to have a different plug on there. And we're going to reach in here, and we're going to unplug this. The key to this is, you'll see there's a little box back up under here if you reach in here, about 1.5 inches square. We're looking for the connector. It mates up with this, comes from the wiring main harness of the bike, and goes to this box. From that box, there is the same plug going out to the taillights. We do not want the plug going out. We need the plug that's incoming. If we have the wrong plug, you'll find you have incorrect functions on the taillights. You'll have incorrect brake and taillight functions. So we want the wire coming from the main harness to the little box that's cable tied up underneath here. We're going to put our sub harness in line. We're going to plug that back in to the main harness of the bike, and we're going to plug that back into the wires that go to the taillight, like so. If this trailer that we're towing is a 5-wire system, we're pretty much set. We plug in our isolator to that. I would run this underneath first, but so you can see this a little better. So we're going to plug in the isolator. We're going to connect the isolator's ground. Could be either to the frame, be sure you have a good ground, or the battery's negative terminal. We're going to connect the fuse that came with it to the battery's positive terminal and the red wire. That's going to give the power and ground to our isolator. Out of that, we're going to run the wire for the plug underneath the frame, in front of the trunk, along the trailer hitch, cable tie that in place. And the other end, you have 5 wires. This is for a 5-wire trailer. We're going to have a ground, a brake light, a tail light, a left turn, and a right turn for a 5-wire system. Again, very simple. All plug and play, very easy to do. All of our instructions have color-coded wiring diagrams, and our phone number's on the bottom. If you get lost, don't hesitate to call us. So now we have the main frame of our hitch installed onto the frame of the trike. We're going to install the tongue, shiny side up, into the receiver. You notice it's got 2 holes on it. Typically the farther forward hole, pulling the tongue farther forward, is where you want it. You can put it back farther if you have a trailer that has a large coupler, something like that on it. I'm going with the forward hole. Put your pin in the hole, locked and clipped. That's it. The other thing to know, put your ball on. The other thing to know is that this bolt on the side is Loctited in. We call that an anti-rattle bolt. So if you go down the road, anti-rattle. You can snug that up and take care of that rattling noise. You can leave it snug enough so you can still pull it out, or you can make it tight, loosen it up a little when you want to pull the tongue out. That's it. That's all there is to installing a trailer hitch on your tripod.